Live from New York, it's the show that's giving out pro bono movie reviews. Brew, do you have one?
No.
We've been on.
Bad Boys 2 was good.
We were just talking about Bad Boys
4 was good.
And the audience doesn't know we've already been on for an hour.
Oh, we've been on for an hour.
So I should have done the table bang the whole
Man,
thing.
we should start again.
Yeah. Brew, any movie reviews?
I didn't get you off guard. We were just talking about it.
Was good.
Brew
That was off camera.
We're in for another installment of Where in the World is Aaron Rodgers? The answer is Egypt.
Well, it
was in Egypt.
I think he's back now.
Oh, shoot.
You'd have lost that game.
Yeah, he's back.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah.
You get control of the board. Connor Hughes reporting that Rodgers pieced together this trip during his Achilles recovery. He wanted something to look forward to. And that players had no issue with this trip and were, quote, surprised that those outside one Jets drive felt differently.
Thanks, Connor.
Also, hysteria over Rodgers' whereabouts emerged largely because of the way the absence was announced.
Oh, so whose fault is that?
Well, the team.
They're blaming Salah?
They are
Rodgers
blaming
for that
Salah.
matter.
They
He
are
could have probably
blaming
given us
Salah.
a shout.
Yeah.
While they were aware of Rodgers' trip and understanding of why it was important to him, their public stance on the matter gave the impression they were not and discounted Rodgers' near perfect
This is
attendance
so shameful.
throughout the voluntary portion
This is shameful.
of the offseason. It was nearly perfect. Nearly perfect.
I mean, this is so.
I know you're upset.
I mean, it's just I don't think Robert Saleh is a very good coach. I'm on the record on that. There is nothing I have said that is as unfair to Saleh as this line of reporting and reasoning, which is this wouldn't have been a problem if Robert Saleh didn't make it a problem. That's what that implication clearly is.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't believe that it was Robert Saleh and Robert Saleh alone that called it unexcused.
I agree.
But now the organization is trying to leak to friendly reporting much ado about nothing when they did the version of concerned, very concerned for this year's Buffalo Bills, except it was the Jets with Aaron Rodgers not being there. And as far as Brew, does he need to clear the air? So it has now been reported by multiple places he was in Egypt. Mm-hmm. There is also, I think, if you listen to Aaron's own words about some of his interest in Egypt, it seems to be along the lines of a lot of what some would call conspiratorial beliefs he has about previous societies, Tartania, all those things. There's a lot of reasons people go to Egypt, but for Aaron, I don't think it's unfair to assume that was part of the allure there. So here's the point I'm making about does he need to clear the air, Brew? If we all agree that if we found out, hey, Aaron, you're finally talking, why weren't you at minicamp? And the answer is, well, I didn't want it to come out, but I was donating a kidney. I was saving a relative's life. We'd all be like, oh my God, we all owe you an apology. There are reasons, and if it was, brother's wife was having a baby. I wanted to be there.
Sure.
You'd be like, okay, not quite the kidney, but there's
And
a
those
scale.
would have been excused,
right,
too.
Sure. And if it was, you know what? I was mentally burnt out in a way I didn't expect I would be, and I just thought it was best for me to just be away, quiet retreat.
Would have been fine.
I think that's
he might say.
Right, by the way, I think that's somewhere here on there. If the answer is, it was the only time on the schedule the Egyptologist would tell me about Tartania, so I had to go, that's over here. And so if we all agree that there are certain excuses that would give you more grace, this would be one that would, I think, fairly generate the least. My wacky YouTube Reddit-laden brain had to go see these pyramids for myself because I think a different society built them. If that's the reason, yeah, you need to clear the air. That's fair. That is logically consistent. And so, yeah, I think you should clear the air, Brew.
Whatever the reason, he needs to clear the air. I mean, he owes it to his teammates, to the Jets organization. You had an inexcused absence. Tell us why. I mean, those are the questions he has to answer. Where'd you go? Why did you go during minicamp? You know, Aaron, generally when mandatory minicamp happens.
The 10-day window when it
You could have scheduled it at any time. Why didn't you schedule it early, later, whatever? What'd you think about the Jets, the way they handled it? Why it was inexcused? Do you have a problem? Like, there's so many questions they need to ask him. All right, so he absolutely should clear the air. They need it cleared so this doesn't – look, I don't think this affects how he plays. I don't think any of us believe this will affect how he plays, but it just goes to show you where is his mind at. You're the guy that said get all non-football distractions out of the building, and now you go ahead to Egypt for a vacation while we're all at minicamp.
Before you go, Wildes, a quick question. Brew, do you think it affects his ability to lead? Because I do. I don't. So I don't think it affects his ability to throw a football, but I think it affects his ability to be the unquestioned voice and leader of the team.
I tend to agree because I think we all, with the things he said, it's hypocritical. We talked about it, selfish. But if those players are all in on him and like, hey, we're fine with it. If they really are, then they can get past that. But I think some of the staff, like the coach, I think Robert Saleh was bothered. And I'm not mad at him for being bothered.
Don't you think that the Jets, and it's a natural reaction, where maybe they had an issue a little bit with Aaron Rodgers taking off. It's the reason why he was fined, it was unexcused. But the criticism was so over the top, let's say, how they would view it. In this article, it was the word hysteria was used, that they circle the wagons. And you're like, you know what? I didn't like it. But now that you guys are coming after it so much, we're going to stand behind Rodgers even more.
Yeah, maybe. But that then, unfortunately, reveals a totally different dysfunction, which is if you did not expect this to get this exact level of coverage, then you're unserious.
Right. Yeah.
If you thought, it'll be a one-day story, then you don't know what you're doing.
In New York?
Then in New York, with one of, what is Rodgers, at worst? The 5th most famous player in the league?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Mahomes and Kelsey gets the Taylor Swift stuff, Mahomes are in a separate area. But you could argue after those two, he's the most famous. And so, and it's the Jets, and he's certainly top 5 most polarizing, right or wrong, all of that. And to not anticipate that there would be hysteria. And by the way, I don't think there was hysteria. I think there was fair questions. And I think there was legitimate poking at, this is wildly hypocritical given what you have said on the record. And your lack as a team, as a player of foresight in getting ahead of it. Because that's the other part of it, is all of this, right or wrong, is taken from the media differently if on one of his first days of being at OTAs, instead of just basking in the PR of, doesn't have to be here, I'm here, you were like, you know what I mean? I thought it was really important to be here because I knew and the team knew. But the other piece of it, Brew, and this is why I think he needs to clear the air, is Saleh made it clear he knew this was going on. But we also know sometimes we get lost in the flood of nonsense surrounding this team. His teammates did not.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor took the field that day not knowing he was going to be first team.
And he should have let them know, too.
Of course.
And that's where the question it's all about how they respond. If privately guys are like, man, come on. You chastising us and talking about getting distractions out of the building, and now you do this privately. If they might be, because publicly they're saying the right thing, that's fine. If privately they feel that way, that's a huge problem. And remember Woody Johnson when he tweeted out how Rodgers looks as good as ever when he's slinging it.
Oh, yeah.
So they are definitely in spin mode, and that's more of what
he's out there like he's 26 years old. Just great. All right, so now we're going to talk about from the leader of the team to the final draft pick this year. It's Jets rookie Jalen Key. He was taken last in the draft, but does exude a Brock Purdy level of confidence when it comes to critics of the Jets, saying, quote, "We'll shut some mouths." Okay. Are you buying the Jets will silence their critics, bro?
I like their roster.
Yeah.
All right?
Come on.
There we go.
On paper, and you can't say anything, Nick, now that you're back in the 76ers with all their injury possibilities. And I don't think that this missing minicamp is going to be the difference between Aaron Rodgers having a great year, mediocre year, bad year, whatever. And my problem with them is just Rodgers. It's just one mess after another, even though he didn't even play last year. It's still one. You're putting out fires all over the place with him. But that said, on paper, and Nick, you don't like this guy and the job he's done, I'll say. They have won 7 games, each of the last 2 years.
Wildes are going to get mad.
With some of the worst, I'm being kind in saying some of the worst quarterback play in football.
So if he can win 3 more games.
If Aaron Rodgers is pretty good, right? Pretty good. That's not worth 2 or 3 more victories. I'm just saying the division's tough.
Yeah.
So they got, y'all know it. Philadelphia, Buffalo, Houston. Teams they beat last year.
Yeah.
With Zach Wilson at quarterback. I just think they got a lot of talent.
Buffalo self-destructed.
It was game 1.
I know, but Josh Allen melted down. That was a meltdown game for Josh Allen.
Rather than look back on who they beat in last year's schedule, because we kind of get in circles on that, let's look forward for a moment, okay? Are we certain they have a top 3 AFC defense? I'm not.
No.
I think they like, so Kansas City.
No.
I'm just going to say at the top of my Kansas City, Baltimore, we'll see. Cleveland's defense was maybe the best in football last year. New England's defense should be excellent.
They won't score points.
New England's offense is disastrous. But so the point is,
But they got a good defense.
I think they have a good defense. I do not doubt they have a good defense. But I don't think they have a great defense. I think they have a very good defense. It was probably, 7th or 8th best in football.
I'll give you that.
I think that's a fair rate, expectation.
If they're 7th or 8th.
7th or 8th, right, exactly. Yeah. When you look at their skill position, guys,
Garrett Wilson?
Hold on.
You don't like it?
So no, here's the problem. They're not above average in the AFC. They're not.
That's fine, but Garrett Wilson is above average.
Right, but that's why I think
actually, I would say they are above average.
Okay, I mean,
Garrett Wilson has had 2 1,000-yard seasons again.
Yes.
With some of the worst quarterback play in football. What's he going to do with Aaron Rodgers?
But how many teams, if we go up and down the AFC, have either a guy as good as Garrett Wilson or a receiving core far better, right?
If they're healthy.
Hold on, Mike Williams is never healthy. He hasn't been healthy since 4 years ago. And even when he is, he was more of an idea. He's good. He's good. He had 300 yards last year. He didn't have 1,000 yards the year before. He had one awesome year, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. He's a great. We'll see about the offensive line. And Breece Hall is a talented young running back who last year almost averaged 65 yards per game. That's their, and with the tight end position, that's not.
There's not a ton of receiver or running backs that average 65 yards a game.
Well, that'd be 1,000 yards. I mean, I think last year he was 11.
It's not a ton of guys.
Right, I think 12 guys maybe did.
I mean, and he missed some games too.
I think last year, I think he only missed one, but he didn't play. Right, he was on a pitch count, and then they tried to game the system at the end of the year to get him to 1,000 yards, and they couldn't do the math right.
They got good.
I just don't. To me, they are a team with a average offensive weapons for the conference, an above average defense, a totally unproven offensive line, a well below average coaching staff, and the oldest quarterback in the league who hasn't had a really good season in 3 years. And who hasn't, Wildes?
He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 23 games.
So the idea that team is going to fight its way through the very meaty middle of the AFC is incredibly unrealistic.
How did that team win 7 games last year?
Because it's hard.
I want to
honestly, because the league is built for everyone to win 8 or 9.
Yes.
That's why.
Okay, and so is their quarterback play going to be a lot better than it was last 2 years?
It should be, yes.
And that's not going to count for some victories?
I think last year they won 7 games.
Here,
I think
Brew,
this year they'll win.
Here's the Jets schedule,
2 years.
Brew. How many wins are you finding here? You're finding 10 wins?
I'm not making my final prediction yet, but
you're starting off 0-1.
Yeah, 0-1.
Okay.
You know what?
1, 2, 3.
Oh,
Look, their next 4 games are winnable. After San Francisco, I don't know that they'll win all, but those next 4 are winnable.
Could do that.
Buffalo, let's say that's an L. Pittsburgh is a toss-up. Patriots again. I get it
take
that
that
maybe it's a division game and all that.
Texans?
The Texans, they beat them last year. Then the Cardinals, the Colts. I mean, there are a lot of winnable games on there. What's the last? They got Miami.
Seahawks, Miami,
Twice.
Jacksonville, Rams, Buffalo, Miami. I'm telling you right now,
there's
they
some
better
wins
have
in
a
there.
lot of wins bagged by the time you get to week 13.
They'll split with Miami. Would you give them that?
Yeah, probably.
Last.
Sure.
You got Seattle. That's winnable. Jags is winnable.
Miami,
We'll see where
Miami
those teams are.
in New York in week 18. That's probably not a great spot for two.
It's going to be chilly. At least 44 degrees.
I think they're an 8 or 9 win team.
Yeah.
And I think last year, when you look at it, that the year before last, every single one of their wins, except for the one over Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, came against backup quarterbacks. Last year, when you look at it, 4 of those wins came against quarterbacks who are no longer starting quarterbacks in this league.
Correct.
But 3 of those quarterbacks were C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts.
When you have a very good defense, there are going to be games the defense wins for you. But when you're poorly coached, when you have a mismatched offensive line, when you don't have a dominant skill position group, and I don't think you have a reliable quarterback, you're going to give some of those games back on the other end, which is how you end up winning 7 or 8 games.
How about that? Coming up next,
Of course, you're
Podcast Gate. Oh, we got another podcast. Bicycle Burris weighing in on the first podcast
It's
about
unbelievable.
Micah's podcast, and we also have a podcast.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.